I skipped my daughter's big achievement to support my stepson, told her to stop being dramatic, and now she won't even look at me. My wife says I should apologize, but I think I did nothing wrong. I have a daughter, Renee, 16, from my first marriage, and a stepson, Mike, 17. I remarried 5 years ago to Lynette, and on paper we're all supposed to be one big blended family that gets along and supports each other. In reality, it's been rocky in ways I honestly didn't think were a big deal until now. There's always been this weird tension between the kids. Renee thinks I treat Mike better. Mike thinks Renee gets special treatment because she's real family. And Lynette thinks I'm too strict about some things and too lenient about others. No one ever says it outright, but it hangs in the air. We've been coasting for years on the "it'll get better with time" idea. For context, I am not some doormat dad. I don't cater to every emotional outburst, and I'm not the type to tiptoe around teenagers. I'll listen, I'll try my best, but I don't jump just because someone is upset. I say what I think, even if it's not soft or comforting, and I try to choose my battles. Apparently that makes me dismissive. But honestly, sometimes the kids are dramatic, and I'm not going to pretend everything is a crisis. Anyway, the big blow-up happened last week. So, same evening, same time, both kids have something important happening. Renee had her school's science showcase. She's been working on this project for months. It's something to do with water purification, don't ask me to explain it. Because she did, and I nodded along even though half of it went over my head. She was proud. I could tell that much. Mike had his basketball semifinal. Not the championship, not some life or death situation, but still big for him, because his team never makes it that far, and he's been working his ass off this season. I had promised Renee I would go to her showcase. I didn't forget. I didn't blow it off. I genuinely planned to be there. Then Mike came home that afternoon looking awful. His dad bailed on coming to the game. Again. And look, whatever issues I have with the guy aside, the pattern is predictable. Says he'll show up, doesn't, and Mike pretends he doesn't care until it becomes obvious he does. I've seen this too many times to count. He sat down at the counter and just deflated, told me he didn't want to go alone, and maybe this is where I screwed up, depending on who you ask, but I made a judgment call, a split-second one, honestly. I told myself Renee would understand because she's grounded, resilient, not fragile. She's had me at every school event except maybe a couple where scheduling got messed up. She has 2 parents who show up. Mike has 1, plus me trying to do the bonus parent role right. I went upstairs and told her I couldn't make it. She immediately just stared at me and said, "Are you serious?" I tried to explain Mike needed me, that his dad bailed. She didn't care. She said, "You promised." I said, "It's just a school thing. Don't be dramatic. I'll make it up to you." Yeah, I said it. And no. At the time, it didn't feel like some dagger to the heart moment. It felt like I was telling her to take a breath. She asked me to go anyway. I repeated that Mike needed support more. She walked away, slammed her door. I figured she'd cool off. Long story short, she didn't. The night played out like this. Mike's team wins. The gym is loud and chaotic, and he's smiling for the first time that day. I thought I made the right call. I came home expecting Renee to be upset, but willing to talk. Instead, I walked into a cold war. Lynette was furious, not yelling, but the quiet, "I'm trying not to explode," kind of angry. She had this look like she was disappointed in me, which somehow felt worse than her yelling would have. She didn't even say hi, she just asked, "Why did you say that to her?" I didn't know what she meant until she repeated what I said. Apparently after the showcase, Renee didn't want to ride home with Lynette. She barely spoke the whole night. She kept asking why I wasn't there. When one of her friend's parents told her they saw me at the game instead, that's when everything fell apart. She found out she won first place but didn't even care because she looked for me the whole time. That part hit me, I'm not going to lie. But I told myself she'd get over it. I genuinely thought she was taking it too personally. I reminded Lynette that kids get emotional. Lynette told me she wasn't emotional. She was hurt. Then Renee came downstairs to get something from the kitchen and walked right past me like I was invisible. I said her name. Nothing. I said it again. She took her water and walked back upstairs without even blinking. Next morning, she left early for school without saying a word to me. Then she texted Lynette, not me, asking if she could stay at her mom's for a while. She didn't even tell me. She didn't even ask. Just packed a few things and left. Her mother came to pick her up later that afternoon and didn't say much to me. Now Lynette keeps telling me to apologize, that it's not just about one event. Renee and I have had arguments, sure, but nothing that felt like the end of the world. Did I really mess up as badly as they're acting? Update 1. Renee is still at her mom's and hasn't contacted me once, not even a single, "I'm okay." The silence is loud, and I keep telling myself I'm not going to let guilt push me around because I didn't do anything with bad intentions. But the longer this goes on, the more it feels like I'm missing something that everyone else seems to see. But the biggest shock didn't come from Renee, it came from Mike. He knocked on my office door on Sunday. I figured he wanted to dissect the game again or complain about homework. Instead, he sits down on the edge of the chair like he's afraid I'm going to explode, and then he tells me he didn't mean for any of it to happen. And I asked him what it meant, and he said the whole thing with me choosing his game over Renee's event. According to him, he never actually asked me to come. He said he was upset because his dad didn't show, and he just said it out loud, not to me. I was the one who made it into a question of choosing. Apparently, he didn't even realize I'd missed Renee's showcase until after the game, when Lynette told him why she'd left early. He told me he felt awful the whole ride home, and that he even texted Renee saying he was sorry for messing things up, and she left him on red. I had no idea any of that happened. I was so caught up in thinking I'd made the logical choice that I didn't actually ask him what he meant in the first place. And before anyone accuses me of lying to make myself look better, trust me, I have no reason to invent this. If anything, it just makes me feel dumber. Things really went sideways on Monday when Renee's school counselor called not me, but Lynette. I don't know why that detail bothers me so much, but it does. Maybe because it proves something I've been trying not to acknowledge. Renee sees Lynette as the safe adult in this house, not me. The counselor said Renee had been crying in the bathroom the night of the showcase before she went up with her project, telling a teacher that it doesn't matter what she does because her dad always picks the other kid. Then last night, Lynette finally admitted something she'd apparently been keeping to herself for months. She said Renee told her she didn't feel like she belonged in this house anymore, that she felt like the extra person in every room. Lynette didn't tell me earlier because she said, "You always have an explanation ready," and I didn't want to have that argument. I'll update again when something actually changes, but for now, all I've got is a lot of confusion. Update 2. After a lot of back and forth with Lynette, and way too many "you need to actually try" comments from pretty much everyone, I decided to stop waiting around for Renee to magically thaw out and went over to my ex's place to talk to her directly. I figured at the very least she'd see I was trying. It didn't go that way. I got to the house, and my ex opened the door like she already knew this was going to be a disaster. She didn't yell, but she had that tone that tells you you're about to be talked at, not talked to. She said Renee didn't want to come downstairs. I said fine, I'd go up. She said absolutely not. So right from the start, it turned into a stalemate. What actually threw me was that instead of letting me talk to my daughter, my ex sat me down at the dining table and pulled out a stack of papers. At first I thought it was something school-related or some report from the counselor. It wasn't. It was a pile of Renee's journal pages she apparently never showed anyone. My ex said, "You need to see this before you say anything to her." I won't lie, I wasn't thrilled about reading my kid's private thoughts. I even said that. My ex just told me it wasn't snooping, that Renee gave permission. I didn't really believe that, but at the same time, what choice did I have? I wasn't being allowed near my daughter otherwise. I'm not going to pretend they didn't hit me, but they also painted me like some cartoon villain version of myself that I honestly don't think is accurate. Stuff like her feeling like she had to compete with Mike, or that I act annoyed whenever she talks to me, or that she stopped asking me to come to school things because she didn't want to see that look on my face. There were a few lines that basically said she didn't think I liked her as a person, which felt harsh because that is absolutely not how I see her. I told my ex that these things sound like assumptions, not facts, and she just said, "They're her facts." She also said I've been oblivious for years and that Renee has been shrinking herself in our house so she doesn't get in the way. I said that wasn't fair, and she said it isn't about being fair, it's about reality. That pissed me off, and I told her I didn't come to get lectured. She told me this isn't a lecture. This is why Renee won't talk to me. So yeah, it was a great time all around. Before I could go upstairs, or even ask if I could try again later, my phone started going off non-stop. It was Lynette. She never calls repeatedly unless something's really wrong. So I answered. She sounded stressed and said Mike was having some kind of meltdown at home. Apparently he overheard her talking to a friend about how the mess with Renee could have been avoided if I hadn't gotten pulled in by Mike's guilt trip, and he took that as her blaming him for everything. I left immediately because the last thing I needed was Mike spiraling alone. On the drive back, I got a text from Renee's mom saying, "We're done for today. Don't come back until you're actually ready to listen." So that's 2 houses I can't seem to step into without someone telling me off. When I got home, I heard the yelling from the driveway. Lynette wasn't screaming, but her voice was sharp enough. Mike was in the living room, red-faced, crying, saying he never should have said anything, and that he ruined the whole family and Renee hates him and I hate him. I had to jump in immediately because Lynette was going on about how she never wanted me to skip the showcase in the first place, and Mike was basically folding in on himself. I separated them, told them both to sit down, and honestly it was the first time I'd seen Mike completely crack like that. He kept saying he's the problem and everyone would be happier if he just stayed out of the way. Which is insane because I've never made him feel unwelcome, but hearing him say it like it was some established truth messed with me more than the journal pages did. So now I've got Renee thinking she's second place in her own house, and Mike thinking he's the one who breaks everything he touches. Meanwhile, Lynette is telling me she's tired of being the one who notices things before I do, and that she can't keep patching everyone up while I'm playing referee with no rulebook. I don't have a solution yet. I don't have a plan. I'm just trying not to drown in everyone's emotions at once. Update 3. So instead of letting everyone keep sulking in their corners, I told them we were sitting down and talking like an actual family. A proper meeting. No running off, no slamming doors, no muttering behind walls. Everyone in one room. Honestly, I expected yelling. I expected eye rolls. I expected Renee to avoid looking at me and for Mike to act guilty even though he didn't do anything wrong. What I didn't expect was how fast everything went downhill. We did this at my ex-wife's place because Renee's been staying there and she said she wasn't comfortable coming to my house yet. Fine. I didn't want the location to be the thing that derailed everything again, so I just agreed. The atmosphere was already off the second I walked in. Renee stayed standing the whole time, arms locked across her chest like she was freezing, and Mike looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Lynette sat down, but she kept that tight posture she gets when she's bracing herself for drama. My ex-wife looked like she'd been waiting years for this. We started with me asking Renee to tell me directly what she thought I wasn't understanding. I thought it would be something like the showcase, the stuff she mentioned in those journal pages, or even leftover feelings from the divorce. Instead, she went straight for the jugular. She said she felt invisible in her own father's life. She said every time she tried to get close to me, I'd shut down or redirect her, or remind her that other people needed more attention and she needed to be mature. She said it so calmly, it stung more than if she'd yelled. Then Mike jumped in, which honestly surprised me because he usually avoids conflict like it's contagious. He said he was sick of Renee acting like he was the favorite when he spent most of the last few years feeling like the outsider who kept messing up the balance of a family that existed before him. He said he practically forced himself to shrink whenever Renee was around because he didn't want to step on her place, and somehow he still ended up being the villain. He said that even the times I missed things for him made him feel guilty, not proud. Lynette's turn wasn't any easier. She told me she was exhausted from being the middle person in every argument. Anytime Renee complained, she had to soften it before bringing it to me. Anytime Mike felt guilty, she had to hold him together while pretending nothing was wrong so I wouldn't spiral into defensiveness. She said she tried to warn me for months that something was building, but she eventually stopped because she knew I'd have some explanation that made it sound like everyone else was overreacting. Then my ex-wife chimed in, and that's when I snapped a bit. She basically said I hadn't changed since the divorce, that I listen only to respond, not to understand. She said Renee's been fighting for my attention quietly for years, and I kept brushing it off as teen behavior. She said I always think my intentions cancel out the impact, and that's when I lost it. Not in a screaming way or anything, but in the kind of blunt, fed-up way. I told them I was tired of being treated like I walked around trying to hurt people. I said I've been doing the best I can in a blended family that has never been simple. I said I show up even when it's messy, even when I don't want to, even when I'm exhausted, and somehow my best always gets spun into me being selfish or uncaring. I said I love both kids and everyone acts like that doesn't matter because I didn't handle one night perfectly. The whole room went silent. For a second I actually thought maybe I said what needed to be said, but then Renee hit me with something I honestly wasn't prepared for. She told me the science showcase wasn't just some school event. It was her final presentation before transferring to a specialist STEM program she applied to months ago. She didn't tell me because she assumed I wouldn't care. She said the project I skipped was basically the last big thing she'd ever get to do at her current school, and the win was what sealed her recommendation. She said she didn't expect balloons or a parade or whatever, she just wanted her dad there for once. She said it like she was talking about weather, but the impact landed like a punch. I didn't even know she applied. She didn't tell me because she said I never seemed interested. I didn't have an immediate reaction because what do you even say to that? I sat there trying to pick apart what I missed, and the truth is, I missed pretty much everything. Then Mike did something I didn't expect. He actually defended her. He said the program was a huge deal, and he didn't know she hadn't told me. He said maybe if the house hadn't been so tense, she would have felt okay sharing it. He wasn't blaming me exactly, but he wasn't excusing me either. He also said he always envied how easy things used to be between me and Renee when she was little, and that he always worried I preferred her because she's my biological daughter. I had no idea he even thought about that. He said that no matter what he did, someone got hurt around him, and he was sick of feeling like the problem. Somehow the kids ended up talking directly to each other instead of yelling past each other for the first time in forever. No hugging or big emotional reunion or anything dramatic like that, but they at least heard each other. I could tell the two of them were processing things on their own terms, and for once, I wasn't the center of that part of the conflict. But after that, it was pretty clear no one had anything left to say. Everyone just kind of drifted apart. Renee went back upstairs without even looking in my direction. Mike walked outside to get air. Lynette told me she needed space to think. My ex-wife looked at me like she wanted to say something but didn't. I left the house feeling like someone had peeled back every layer of defense I had and left me standing in the wind. I went in thinking I could explain myself, maybe clear things up, maybe push us toward a plan. Instead, I left realizing the problem isn't one event, or one choice, or even one comment. It's years of small things I didn't realize mattered, stacking up behind me like a wall I never noticed was there. Final update. So yes, Renee is still mostly living at her mom's. That's not what I expected when this whole thing happened. I assumed she needed time to cool off and then we'd talk and things would go back to normal-ish. But the longer she stayed there, the clearer it became that she wasn't just hiding from a bad night or a one-off argument. She was choosing distance because it made her feel safer or calmer or whatever word fits. And that part stung more than the initial silent treatment because it felt like she was saying, without saying it directly, that home didn't feel like a home for her. And that's not something I can argue with or wave off as teenage emotions or anything like that. We've been doing weekly meetups. I pick her up, we go somewhere neutral, usually a cafe or the park, and we talk. Not big dramatic conversations, no crying or hugging in the rain or anything. Mostly just me trying to listen, without jumping in to explain myself, which is harder than I thought it would be. I didn't realize how much I rely on, but I didn't mean it that way, as a shield. Turns out that doesn't fix anything, it just shuts the other person down. She talks a little about school, the specialist program she got into, how she's nervous about the workload. She doesn't mention the showcase. She doesn't mention that night. She doesn't mention Mike. She doesn't mention the pattern her mom brought up. It's like she's keeping everything on a surface level until she feels like she can risk anything deeper. I'm not proud of how long it took me to realize that's fair. Meanwhile, back at home, things with Mike did a weird reversal. I expected him to act uncomfortable or guilty or keep some distance from me after the blow-up. Instead, he's actually been more open with me than he's ever been. Not in some deep emotional confessional teenage boy way, but he checks in more. He lingers longer in the kitchen when I'm making breakfast. He asks how work was. He even brought up college plans, which he's never done with me before. I think the fight with Lynette scared him a bit, because he genuinely thought he ruined the family dynamic. I had no idea he carried that around, the idea that I'd always choose Renee over him because she's my real kid. It's strange hearing both kids accuse me of opposite things. He apologized to Renee through text first. She didn't answer, but she didn't block him either, which I've decided means something positive even if I have no clue what. He asks me sometimes if she hates him, and I remind him that she doesn't hate him. She just has a lot going on, and that's true. They were never close, and I never pushed them to be. I think I assumed blended families just sort themselves out if everyone's reasonably civil. Apparently that's not how it works. Lynette and I had our own long talk, well, not long in hours of emotional unpacking terms, but long for us, considering we usually brush things off quickly to keep the house running smoothly. She told me, pretty bluntly, that I relied too much on my intentions to justify my choices, and that it makes everyone else feel like I expect them to adjust around me, instead of me actually adjusting to them. And again, I didn't love hearing it, but it wasn't wrong. She said she's not going to be the referee anymore, and I said okay. I think she expected a fight, and when I didn't give her one, she softened a little. We're not tense with each other, it's just a new dynamic where she lets me handle my own messes instead of interpreting the kids' feelings for me. My ex-wife has been surprisingly level-headed through all this. I thought she'd use it as ammunition against me, but instead she's been pretty neutral, supportive even. She said something like, "Renee doesn't need a perfect dad, she just needs one who listens." And it stuck with me. Mostly because I spent years thinking I was already doing that, when apparently I was just waiting for my turn to talk.